Before I start level 2 cons, I have no option but to revise level 1 cons, because level 2 cons builds on level 1 cons, especially the topics of hypothesis testing and regression, which probably would have been your strongest sarcastically. So we'll build up from level 1 cons, study a bits of regression, which is whatever is required for level 2, will build on that. But थोड़ा सा hypothesis testing भी रिवाइज कर लेंगे कि z t f chi square कब यूज करना है. Some of them are not required in the level 2, but let's recap that. And before that, let's look at some basic formulas of level 1 cons which are required in the level 2. Wow. I believe you would be able to surely recollect those formulas which I'm writing. So you write them, write down the formula for sigma p. When you have two assets in your portfolio, write down the formula for return on portfolio when you have two assets on your portfolio, two assets in your portfolio. Sharp ratio. Formula for beta, formula for R, formula for A, and formula for B. Okay, just try to recollect all this stuff from level 1, and jitne formulas yaad ho rahe hain, just try to write them about this. Sharp ratio. क्या पिया? सिग्मा पी plus rate of p sigma p square, rate of p of p and sigma p and R. Yeah, Rishabh, formula for beta. Coefficient stock and market divided by variance of market of sigma m square. And other formula? R into beta. R into sigma beta sigma m. R into standard deviation of stock divided by standard deviation of market. It will be easy, Kaushal. Return of portfolio. Return of portfolio. W1 R1 plus W1 R1 plus W1. Okay. Formula for B, which is by the way called as, if you remember, it was called as slope coefficient, and A was called as intercept coefficient. And by the way, this is there in your calcing. Second 8 function mein you see them. You press second and 8, you scroll down, you see the A and the B before you see that R. So A was intercept and B is slope. X and Y upon variance of X. Good. So I'm confident it was right. Variance of X. By the way, ये variance X मतलब क्या? I mean, I would want to say variance of independent variable. Okay, so X मतलब independent variable. Here one sharp ratio of anything, like sharp ratio in general formula. RP minus RP minus yeah, Roshni, A formula, I'm sorry, R formula, correlation. Arey guys, what covariance between Y and X divided by sigma X, sigma Y. This formula was there more major in portfolio management, but we also had seen this formula in quants. And जो अर्जुन बोल रहा था, A का कोई direct formula नहीं है. A does not have a direct formula, but we are going to be using that equation, which was y is equal to a plus bx. So y के जगह पे we'll put average value of y. A we are going to calculate by rearranging it. B we had calculated using this formula. We calculated the B. And x के जगह we'll put average value of x. And then we'll rearrange it to get the value of A. The thing that I don't require for level 2, but still you should know, SAR versus ER. You can do this with the help of second 2 function of your calculator. For example, if SAR is 10% and they have quarterly compounding, then you're going to get return on return, and because of that, ER will be more than that. So you're going to get 10% plus the reinvestment income. So how to do that? You have to press second and 2. हाँ क्या क्या SR क्या है? Stated annual rate, which is called as norm. Which is called as norm in your second 2 function of the calculator. So press that norm as 10, enter. Before going to effective, go to this C/Y. I have put 12 because earlier example I was monthly compounding, but here I'm doing quarterly compounding, so I need to put 4 and enter. Come to effective and press compute. So that 0.38 extra compared to the 10, you're getting 10.38. That 0.38 extra is the reinvestment income. Congrats. If I make it monthly compounding, obviously the reinvestment income is going to be higher. This is not required for the level 2, okay, but I'm just revising it. If I do it monthly compounding, I'll go over here and put 12. Coming to the effective again, this will increase now. Not drastically, but it increased to 10.47. I make it daily compounding, so it should even increase further. 365. Coming to effective, it did increase, but not drastically. Again, 0.52. And daily क्या आगे क्या होता है? Continuous compounding. So you put very high number because continuous compounding you can't put any. So maybe you can put 365 into 24 hourly compounding, or you could put any high number. I'm not putting 365 into 24 hourly compounding type. Okay, enter. And now 10.52 will not change much. You can see it didn't change much. It just remains. So there's no difference between the daily compounding and continuous compounding. We did this in the level 1 with the help of this formula, which also you should know in the interviews. 100 into 1 plus 10% raised to 1. And then agar quarterly compounding hai, so we divided this by 4 and we multiplied this by 4. Like this. 10% divided by 4 plus 1 raised to 4 and into 100. So we got that 110.38 minus 100 upon 100. We got that 10.38%.
सर वो e raised to लोग का उसका
हम ना कंफ्यूज कि कब ln यूज करना है कब सेकंड ln यूज करना है. ये लोग काफी लोगों ने मुझे पूछा था हाउ ना कंफ्यूज ln कब यूज करना है सेकंड ln कब यूज करना है. ओके सॉरी when is e raised to something that time you second and when I will use ln.
Sir, when ln we are adding in e raised to ln, that time we have to use only ln.
I'll give 2 examples. Okay, I am doing 100 into e raised to rt. R is 10% and t is 1 year. Okay, I'm going to get the answer, which is I know it's going to be like this. It's going to be 10.52%. Okay, let's see how to do this. And second one, I want to do like this: 100 into e raised to x into 1 or x into n, x into 2, and that's equal to 150. I need to solve for that x. So पहला वाला कैसे करना है? पहले you do this 10% into 1. 10% into 1. And then to do the e, press second and ln. तो E करने के लिए you have to press second ln and then you have to do into 100. You got 110.52 and then you got to do that minus 100 divided by 100 to get the answer in percentage. You got the same answer 10.52%. मतलब 110.52 which lead to 10.52% as a return which we got over here. Second, ये solve कैसे करना है? First take the 100 on the other side. So this into 100 will become divided by 100. You do that 150 upon 100. So that become 1.50.
Then plus.
Now जैसे we discuss कि अगर लेफ्ट में स्क्वायर है तो राइट में स्क्वायर रूट बनता है. ओके, वैसे ही लेफ्ट में e जब राइट में जाता है, जैसे लेफ्ट में अगर इनटू है, सो ऑन द यहाँ पे अगर इनटू है तो यहाँ पे डिवाइड बनता है, यहाँ पे अगर प्लस है तो यहाँ पे माइनस बनता है. सिमिलरली अगर लेफ्ट में e है तो राइट में ln बनता है. सो दिस लेफ्ट वाला e will go to right and become ln. So after you get that 1.50, you have to press the button ln, and that's the answer for 2x. Divide that by 2, you get the answer for x 20.27%. So point is e raised to के ऊपर वाला नंबर तुम्हें पता है, then you have to do second ln. जैसे ऊपर 10% into 1 I know, so I'll do 10% into 1 and then to do the e I'll press second ln. But e raised to ऊपर वाला नंबर मुझे पता नहीं, जैसे 2x or something है, then I need to rearrange everything on the right and then remove the e by pressing the button ln. Here. Last topic, formulas, a lot of formulas in the last topic. We had SS R called as sum of square of regression, SSE sum of square of error, and then we have SST sum of square of total. We used to be given these numbers. Let's say this is 120. Let's say this is 80. So total will not be given. We have to calculate total. That will be simply addition. That is 200. यहाँ से कुछ मिलता था. I'll not tell you क्या मिलता था. Don't tell me also. You think about it and you write. यहाँ से कुछ मिलता था. Then इसको किसी से डिवाइड करना था. इसको किसी से डिवाइड करना था. उसके बाद मिलता था MSR, mean square of regression and mean square of error. और ये दोनों को डिवाइड करके और कुछ मिलता था. Please don't say that. Write down in your notebook. कुछ मिलता था. Okay, so just try to recollect that. और इस टेबल का नाम क्या था? Try to recollect and write down in your notebook. Write down guys in your notebook. Let everyone get try to recollect it from their memories. मैं जस्ट ऑटो कर रहा हूं क्योंकि वो कलर दिख ही नहीं रहा था. So I think within a proper bola, it's called as ANOVA, analysis of variance. Okay. Second thing, 120 upon 200 SSR upon SST. इसका एक नाम था SSR upon SST, and it was called as good R square. And the name of that is called as coefficient of determination. SSR upon SST.
इसका मतलब ये है कि अगर 20% फेल होगा तो 80% जो पास होगा
मतलब 60% accuracy.
समझ.
सेकेंड, ये SSR को डिवाइड करते थे हम लोग बाय 1 इन लेवल 1. आई मेंशन दिस एंड इन द लेवल 2 विल डिस्कस अबाउट इट क्या करना है. एंड SSC को डिवाइड करते थे बाय n-2.
इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? R square COD is equal to
मतलब अभी नहीं कर रहा, जस्ट रिवाइज करते हैं. नहीं होता. उसके बाद 120 upon 1 is MSR, so that will become 120. Sample size will be given to you, whatever. Let's say sample size is, let's say 42. अथवा large या small? 42.
30 सुपर सब 30
30 से ऊपर नहीं, 30 and 30 के ऊपर. Okay, 30 is also large. 30 and 30 के ऊपर is large. So 42 is large. 42 minus 2, that's 40. 80 upon 40 is 2. Okay, 120 upon 1 is 120, and 80 upon 42 minus 2, that will be 40. 80 upon 40 is 2. And this, which is coming as 60, is called as F calculated value. We used to compare this with F cutoff value. We used to have two F tables, 5% and 2.5%, and वो देखने के लिए ऐसा होता था, degree of freedom for the numerator and degree of freedom for the denominator. So degree of freedom for the numerator is this one, and degree of freedom for the denominator is this n minus 2. In our case 42 minus 2, that is 40. तो ये दोनों का जो intersection है, that's the cutoff value. That's how we get the cutoff value. Calculated value 60. अगर cutoff value से ज्यादा है, then the model, that quantitative model, is good to use. ज्यादा क्वेश्चन नहीं आते थे लेवल 1 में ANOVA के ऊपर, because it was level 1. Now level 2 is going to build on this only. तो contrast में कुछ change किया क्योंकि black and red समझ में नहीं आ रहा. This was red. वापस change करता हूँ.
सर रीसेट कर दो.
ये green color है actually.
बरोबर किया.
There are a few names which we had seen in the level 1 about few tests. To be specific, 4 tests: Z, T, F, and chi-square that we just did right now. Z, T, F, and chi-square. क्यों नहीं बंद हो रहा है? Z, T, F, and chi-square. You have to use Z and T in some cases, and you have to use F and chi-square in some other cases. I want you to write that. When to use Z and T, when to use F and chi-square. In which cases did we use Z and T? And in which cases did we use F and chi-square? Unfortunately, the easy part of level 1 quants, which was there initially, कि MAD calculate करो, standard deviation calculate करो, वो सब नहीं है level 2 में, unfortunately. Median calculate करो, percentile calculation करो, range calculate करो, वो सब नहीं है level 2 में, unfortunately.
Z और T.
हाँ, so when to use Z and T?
Averages of good.
When you have to compare or when you have to see whether the average is equal to a number or not, we use Z and T. And if you are comparing the standard deviations, you have to use F or chi-square. To be specific, the standard deviation को एक number के साथ compare करें तो use chi-square. And if you are comparing two standard deviations, we use F test. Okay, but in general, what you need to remember right now, for comparing averages, that is means we require the Z and T, and for standard deviations we require F or chi-square.
And even R.
Even for R, even for correlation is good. Even for correlation we require the T test. We had few names in the level 1 about some mistakes in the regression, some mistakes of correlation. To be specific, there were 3 mistakes in correlation. I hope someone can tell me the 3 mistakes in correlation. Or anyone in the online can unmute and tell, or you guys can tell 3 mistakes in correlation. एक I think सबको पता होगा, वो word सबको I think mind में होगा, सबके mind में होगा वो word. Correlation. Spurious correlation. Okay, correlation just by chance. Correlation which does not have any kind of economic significance. That was called as spurious correlation. ये भूल गए तुम लोग spurious correlation?
Spurious, हाँ अभी आ रहा है.
Spurious मतलब false correlation. So it's correlation just by statistics but does not have any economic significance. श्वेजस में कुछ ऐसे फालतू सा ये दिया था कि returns of stock market versus some actor, I don't know, Will Smith या some, how many times he has got the, उसको कितने, हाँ उसको how many actress has acted with him or how many awards he has won versus the returns of stock market had a very high correlation. But obviously that does not have any economic significance, so it was a false correlation. Second and third is interesting. Correlation सिर्फ तुम्हें ये बताया कि दो चीज का एक दूसरे के साथ रिलेशन है, बट कौन सी चीज, what parameter drives other, that question does not tell you. Question just tell you stock market returns and GDP growth rate are connected to each other, but it does not tell you कि whether stock market is dependent on GDP या GDP is dependent on stock market. It doesn't tell you which is Y and which is X. So it tells you whether two things are related or not, but that's it. Which one is independent and which one is dependent, it doesn't tell you that. That are called as, the correlation does not talk about causal relationship. What causes the other to change, it doesn't tell that. And third, when you press second and 8, what do you get? Press second and 8.
Linear.
It assumes that there is a linear relationship. It could be possible that there could be a non-linear relationship. The correlation only captures the strength of linear relationship. Number 4, X goes up, Y will go up. इतना ही बताता है. But by how much, it doesn't tell. The question simply tells whether two variables will move in the same direction or opposite direction. But when one goes up, other will go up. But by how much, it doesn't tell that. That is what the regression is going to be discussed. In regression, we discuss about that. That D formula, you said, no? That D formula is about by how much. And let's come to what he was mentioning.
When there is expansion to both the stocks, increase or
हाँ, so वही मतलब दो thesis और Infosys एक डायरेक्शन में जाएंगे, ये बताता है कोरिलेशन. बट व्हेन TCS गोज अप, Infosys कितना ऊपर जाएगा, ये बताता है रिग्रेशन.
So correlation is better than covariance, right?
हाँ, that is the advantage, because covariance is like limitless. It could have no limit, but correlation is like -1 to +1. Achha, one more thing. To have diversification, what's the minimum required criteria? Wait, one person. Your options: R should be negative, R should be 0, या R should be less than 1. Good. R negative अच्छा है, but it's not minimum required criteria. R0 is also good, but minimum required criteria for diversification to work with, like you semester on that last wala 2 times W1 sigma 1 W2 sigma 2 R. The minimum required criteria for diversification to work is R should not be 1. R should be anything but 1. Should be less than 1. जो नहीं चाहिए वो भी मैं जस्ट रिवाइज कर रहा हूँ. लेवल 2 में नहीं चाहिए वो चीज, बट वो आई एम जस्ट रिवाइजिंग दैट. ये फॉर्मूला तुम भूल नहीं सकते. रॉय सेफ्टी फर्स्ट रेशियो फॉर्मूला. पूरा मिस्टेक किया उसने. R minus RT upon sigma. Target return. Return of portfolio minus target return upon sigma. Okay, it's not required level 2, but you should know this was there in level 1. Return of portfolio or average return of portfolio minus target return divided by sigma. अगर ये ratio higher है, if this ratio is higher, what happens? Everyone write down in your notebook. If Roy safety first ratio is higher, what happens? Wait. Please write down in your notebook. Please don't say the answer. If Roy safety first ratio is higher, what happens? But it's not there in the level 2. Formula for the Roy safety first ratio is R minus RT or average return upon RT divided by sigma. And if Roy safety first ratio is higher, shortfall risk is lower. The risk of falling short of your objectives becomes lower. So if Roy safety first ratio is higher, the risk of falling short of your goals becomes the lowest.
कि वो सॉर्टेड में
नहीं वो इसमें आता है शार्प में.
Sharp
For
ratio.
example, if ROI safety first ratio taken note is 0.82. So what we'll do is we'll go to the Z table. We'll see the value of 0.82. So 0.8 and 0.2. There's 79% chance that your objective would be achieved, and there's 21% chance that your objective will get missed out. So that's shortfall risk. So there's 79% chance that your objective will be achieved, and there's 21% chance that your objective is going to get missed out, and what is called as the shortfall risk. So shortfall risk is 21%. ये नहीं है. What I just mentioned right now on the screen is not in the level 2, and so there's a level 1. I just thought of recollecting this. Standard deviation as a measure of risk has main drawback that it talks about the average as a benchmark, which is no problem, but it measures the volatility of returns below the average as well as above the average. And that's what the problem is for an investor. If you give him a return greater than the average, he will not complain. He won't say, "यार average बोला था 15%, तुमने दिया 20%." He'll be happy with that. But compared to the average, if you give him a return lesser, that's where the complaint would be. So as an investor, returns above the average is happy. That's blessings. Returns below the average is where the risk is. But standard deviation ने क्या किया? दोनों को लिया. उसने क्या किया? If you remember the steps, take the number, subtract the average, and then do the square. You never looked at whether the returns are above average or lower average. You just took the return, you subtract the average. But एक रेशियो था जिसमें हमने ये चीज को करेक्ट किया था. We just looked at wait. We just looked at the returns which are below the average. The returns which were above the average, we ignored them. Remember what was it? Okay, everyone write down the name. In this way of calculating the deviation, we only looked at the returns which were below the average. We did not look at the returns which are above the average. Then we took the difference, we squared them, we added them, we divided by n-1, we took the square root. Semi-standard deviation. Semi-sigma. Also what is down sigma or semi-sigma. And then वो जो sharp ratio का हमने formula लिखा था R minus RF upon sigma, उसमें अगर R minus RF upon semi-sigma कर दिया, then the ratio is called as, write down in your notebook. Write down in your notebook, guys. Let everyone think, please ऐसे बीच में मत बोलो. R minus RF upon sigma की जगह R minus RF upon down sigma या semi sigma. क्या करो? इसका क्या था? ये क्या था? ये शार्प. एंड ये क्या था? ये तो ये सेमी स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन है. ये रेशियो को क्या बोलते हैं? सॉर्टिनो. गुड. R minus RF upon बीटा अगर लेते हैं तो इट बिकम्स टेलर. Let's come to the main stuff which I require for level 2. One regression, the other one hypothesis testing. So let me first do the regression ka bit of calculations. Y is equal to C plus mx that we learned in the school days. What we learned in the school days. Okay, it's going to change now. It has changed in the level 1 actually to y is equal to a plus bx. Number 1 about a. A अगर पॉजिटिव है, A अगर जीरो है और A अगर निगेटिव है, that tells you where the line is going to start from. ये रेड दिख रहा है क्या? अगर A पॉजिटिव है तो लाइन will start from here. If A zero है, line will start from here, और A negative है तो line will start from here. So basically A is the starting point of the line. Name of the line is called as regression line. The starting point will be determined by A. If A is positive, line will start here. If A is 0, line will start from center. If A is negative, line will start from below. Okay. As of now, let's assume that A is positive. The line is going to start from above. Second thing about B. What happens when the B is positive? What happens when the B is 0? What happens when the B is negative? So if the B is positive, the line slopes upward. If B is 0, line is horizontal, and if B is negative, line is downward sloping. So positive value of B, line upward sloping, 0 value of B, line horizontal, negative value of B, line is downward sloping. To get the values of A and the B, what we require is historical data between X and Y. So we'll be given the historical data between X and Y, something like this. Or let's put it, what is X? So X is GDP growth rate and Y is returns of stock market. Okay, so the obvious thing is like returns of stock markets are dependent on GDP growth rate. The GDP drives the returns of stock market. So the equation would look like this: returns of stock market is equal to A plus BG. A plus B into G. So what will be given is historic returns, let's say 2025, 2024, 23, 22, 21. Will be given this data, which we are going to put that in the second 7 function of the calculator. We put the second clear and then we put these values. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying I'm just going to put the values like this. Then we press second and 8, and if it is not linear, we make it linear by pressing second enter, second enter, second enter. We stop when it shows linear. We scroll down, 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 and that's how we get the A value and the B value. For example, over here, A came out to be almost 0, so the line will start from
Middle
center, and the B is positive, so the line is going to be looking something like this. A came out to be almost 0, so the line is going to start from center, and B is positive, so the line is going to be upward sloping like this. But that's when the historic data is given to you. You put them in the second 7 function, or even in the Microsoft Excel, you can put this to get the values of A and the B. But instead of that, if you are given something like this, covariance between the stock market and GDP, variance of stock market and variance of GDP, you have been also given average value of G, and you have been given average value of market, returns of market, and you are asked to calculate that A and the B. So how did we do that? That's what I asked you at the start of the session called the formula. Remember the B ka formula? Wait, when was it? B ka formula. Variance of X. Because it's Y and X divided by variance of X. But to be specific, remember variance of independent variable. Don't remember variance of X, or remember variance of X, but then immediately write down variance of independent variable. So covariance तो एक ही होता है 300, उसमें टेंशन नहीं है. Divided by variance of X, and that is where the variance, there are 2. So we should know what is the independent variable. Market depends on GDP, or GDP depends on market. Market depends on GDP. So GDP is independent. So 300 upon 150. That's the value of B, which is going to be 2. Okay. Second, you need to apply the formula, the equation y is equal to A plus bx. And now that we got the value of B as 2, so put that, it becomes y is equal to A plus 2x. So instead of y, you put the average value of y. But what is y over here? Y is nothing but the market, the returns of the market over here. And X is nothing but the GDP growth rate. So look at what is average value of market. Average value of market is 15. Put that 15 over here. Is equal to A plus 2 into average value of X plus average value of GDP growth rate 8. So 2 8 is 16, goes on the other side, 15 minus 16, A becomes minus 1. Okay, 16 goes on the other side, become minus 16. So 15 minus 16, A becomes minus 1. So that's how we get the value of A and B. And because A is negative, the line will be starting below. Okay, so line will be starting below because A is negative, and because B is positive, line would be upward sloping like this. So I'm happy that you could recall the formulas of A and B. Stop me in case something is not clear. I'm going a little fast.
The formula B stands for the
Slope.
and
A stands for the intercept. A stands for intercept or starting point, and B stands for the slope.
There's a constant also.
That A is the constant.
A is the constant.
Basically, A is like not changing, so A is called a constant. This is intercept. Y is dependent, X is independent variable. Like in this case, X independent variable is GDP growth rate, Y dependent variable is returns of stock market.
Sir, ये ग्राफ से पता क्या चलता है जैसे
So basically, it tells you कि एक तो horizontal axis और vertical axis is get to know कि what depends on the other, which was not there in the correlation. So X axis is going to be like GDP growth rate, and on that Y axis depends. That is the stock market returns depends on GDP growth rate. That's one thing. Let me put that so that you will get to know. So I'll just put it like this. So I'll put inflation over here and interest rates over here. And I'll draw the line. I'll put the values over here. And just write over here. Guys, silent please. Right over here, slope is. Guys, silent please. Slope is 1.5. Let me answer राहिल का जो क्वेश्चन था इसमें कि इससे क्या इंटरप्रेट करते हैं हम लोग. Number one चीज, y depends on x. So number one thing that I'm going to interpret from this is interest rate depends on inflation and not the vice versa. So take a note, conclusion number one from this is that interest rates depend on inflation. So inflation drives the interest rates. Okay, so it's the inflation on which the interest rates are dependent on. So inflation drives the interest rates. That's number one conclusion. Second one, agar inflation zero hai, even if the inflation is zero, interest rates will be still 3%. So even if the inflation is zero, the interest rate is going to be 3%. So one is inflation drives the interest rate, and second, usi se continuation wala point, even if the inflation is zero, the interest rates are going to be 3%. And then this is the important point. For every 1% increase in the inflation, the interest rates are going to increase by 1.5%. For every 1% increase in the inflation, the interest rates are going to increase by 1.5%. So three things: horizontal axis drives the vertical axis, that is inflation drives the interest rates. Number two, even if the inflation is zero, the starting point is 3%, that means interest rate would be 3%. And number two, when inflation increases by 1%, the interest rates will increase by 1.5 times of that. 1.5 to 1%, that's 1.5%. Let me draw another line, another axis. You guys conclude these 3 points similar to it. Okay, returns of currency, so returns of dollars and returns of market. It's similar to the previous conclusions. Without turning the pages, run those three conclusions. Because I just want to check three conclusions. Good. First, she has written it properly. That returns of dollar drives the returns of market. So returns of market depends on returns of dollar. Good. Second point is also right that he has written even if the dollar does not move, but the dollar ka return is 0%, still the market will give you 10% return. First, right, that it's the returns of dollar that drives the returns of market and not vice versa. Returns of market depends on returns of dollar. Second question में लिखा point proper है कि even if the returns of dollar is zero, when the dollar does not move, the dollar has a zero return, still the market will give you 10% return. If returns of dollar goes down by 1%, returns of market will go down by 2%. Stay.
Return of market goes up
What
by
not third? I don't want to read the third. एक मेरे देखो mistake था. For every 1% increase in the returns of dollar, that means if returns of dollar goes up by 1%, the return of market will पहले उसने ऊपर लिखा, then she corrected it. Returns of market will go down by 2%. Good. जो रोहन ने किया ना, उसने दोनों एरो नीचे किए थे. So अगर दोनों एरो नीचे मतलब they move in the same direction, but they don't move in the same direction. Arrow, I mean the line is downward sloping. That means they move in the opposite direction. So the third conclusion is if the returns of dollar goes up by 1%, the return of market will go down. कैसे down? Because line is going down by not 1 but 2%. I'll give you a question and based on that you write the solutions. Okay, returns of market is equal to 0.10 plus 1.5 times the GDP growth rate. So I have two questions. एक काम करता हूँ, change it minus 1.5 times inflation. Okay. इसमें question है inflation goes down by 3%, what will happen to returns of market? And second question is returns of market is equal to 0.07 plus 0.03 into G. And question is if G is 8%, what is returns of market? There are two questions. Similar like level 1 के questions से ये. But because वो last का I think chapter number 10 था ये. So दम निकल जाता है तब तक obviously. So उसके आगे में था ना एक chapter I think big data something like. यहाँ पे कुछ चेंज किया था?
कुछ नहीं,
कुछ भी नहीं किया था ना?
सब चीज को रीसेट कर लो ना सर, नीचे जाकर
Color is not even changing to green. Done? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
अरे मैं तो ऐसे स्क्रीन करा दूंगा, क्वेश्चन लिखा ना तुम लोगों ने. The answer? 5.5 watt. Okay, second one. Let's look at the second one first. The G is 8%. We'll be putting that G over there, which is 8%. I'll put that G as 0.08 over here, 8%. Will I put 8% or will I put 8? Now, this was not so much emphasized in the level 1. In the level 2, read the question carefully. Below the equation, they will mention G is in percentage. So if they mention G is in percentage, so 8% matlab 8 press karo. And if they don't mention anything, then 8% matlab 0.08. Like I didn't mention anything. So you'll put 8% as 0.08. But if I would have mentioned, assume G is in percentages or take G is in percentages, so 8%, so you write that as 8 and not 0.08. Is that clear? Wait, listen, this is a very important point. अगर उन्होंने mention किया G is in percentages, so in that case 8% would be put as 8. But I didn't mention anything, so you'll put 8% as proper 0.08, which is what she did. नहीं, एक सेकेंड, मैंने इक्वेशन के बाद अगर उन्होंने मेंशन किया है G is in percentages, then 8% will be put as 8, and if they don't mention anything, then 8% will be put as 0.08. मैंने कुछ बोला ही नहीं था, so that means that you have to put 0.08. Say 0.03 into 0.08. Let me do that. 0.03 into 0.08. And plus 0.07. You got 7.24. How much you got? 7.24. The returns of market is 7.24%. Now the first question, if inflation goes down by 3%, her answer was wrong. What she did is she put 3% over here. Okay, she has put 3% over there. Guys, silent please. And then she did the calculation like this: 0.10 minus bracket open 1.5 into 0.03 bracket close. You got 5.5 as answer. But my question was not if inflation is 3%. My question was if inflation goes down by 3%. So what you have to assume is, first assume karo ki inflation is 0. What is the return of market? Okay, let's do that. If inflation is 0, this term will cancel out. Pura term cancel ho jayega. So what becomes is 0.10 only. So return of market is 0.10, matlab 10%. Second, now sir ne kya bola? Inflation goes down by 3%. So 0 minus 3%, so that will be minus 0.03. 0 minus 3%. So from this initial value of inflation, which we assume to be 0, you subtract that 3%, that is 0.03. Now put that 0.03 with a negative sign over there. Let's do it. 0.10 and then minus of minus will become plus. So just do plus, bracket open, 1.5 into 0.03, bracket close. Inflation is now 0.145, that is 14.50%. So answer is, the question was what happens to the return of market? The return of market, which was 10%, now has become 14%. The return of market has increased by 4.50%. Okay, so earlier the return of market was 0.10, matlab 10%. Now it has become 0.14, matlab 14%. The return of market has increased from 10 to 14. It has increased by that 4.50%. Similar question, ek aur baar, just for you to practice. Okay, take a note. Returns of market is equal to 0.07, sorry, 7 plus 1.8 into, sorry, minus returns of market. I don't know क्या हो रहा है वो. So returns of market is equal to 7 minus 2 into interest rates. And now interest rate bracket में और इसके बाजू में राइट interest rate is in percentage. Question: if interest rate goes down by 5%, what happens to the return of market? If interest rate goes down by 5%, what happens to the return of market? Please do it individually. I just put the February ka test ka schedule. Guys, do it individually. Guys, do it individually. No discussion, guys. No discussion.
आज भी मौका कैसा
4 बचे. Yeah, Neil answer. Sorry, Neil answer. So another thing I forgot to write over here, that return of market is in also percentages. So just write that return of market is also in percentages. I forgot about that. So what I'm gonna do is, what I'm gonna do for this question, interest rate is gonna down by 5%. So what's the interest rate you assume first? Good. So write down that interest rate 0. Put that 0. 0, yeah, 0.00. I know it's same, but technically you should write. If I say interest rate is 0%, shall I put 0 or 0.00? 0 because interest rate is in percentage, or just put a number. यहाँ पे कुछ भी चलेगा, बाद में नहीं होगा. So -2 to 0 is 0. 7 minus 0, return of market is 7%. What? The new interest rate would be 0 minus 5 -5%. You said 5 into 2 minus 5 into -2. Minus sign is cancelling. So I said interest rate is down by 5%. So it was 0 earlier. So 0 minus 5. Good. So interest rate is now -5%. And you're going to be putting over here minus 0.05 or minus 5. Good. Minus 5. Okay. Because interest rate in percentage, you're not going to put this time minus 0.0, you're going to put minus 5. Minus 5 into -2 is 10. 10 plus 7 is 17. The returns, which were 7, has become 17. Returns? Let us returns. Good. Returns of market have increased by 10%. Now shortcut क्या है? ये मैंने बोला था लेवल 1 में कि क्या देखना है कि अगर हमें वैल्यूज दिया है तो वैल्यूज को पुट करो एंड यू गेट द आंसर. और अगर चेंज बोला है, जैसे यहाँ पे इंटरेस्ट रेट इज चेंजिंग, तो आपको क्या करना है? अगर चेंज बोला ना, तो ये जो टर्म है विद नील सेड इज कांस्टेंट, इसको इग्नोर ही करो, इसको डिलीट ही करो माइंड में या फिर इसमें, एंड जस्ट डू इट लाइक दिस. 5% and into 2. How much is 500 into 2? 500 into 2. 10%. And this minus sign indicates that it will be moving in the opposite direction. So I repeat, 5% into 10 is 10%, and minus sign matlab it will move in the opposite direction. So interest is down, market will be up. Okay, let's apply the same thing for the previous one. I lost that. क्या था वो? Equation बताओ मुझे कोई.
0.10
Returns of market is equal to
0.10 minus 1.5 inflation.
minus 1.5 into inflation. Right now, minus 1.5 into inflation, no? And what are the conditions if inflation goes down by
3%?
Now look at this. Again, change बोला गया, right? They do not, like second question में क्या था? G का कुछ value दिया था, and then you have to put that G का value. Change नहीं था, यहाँ पे change बोला गया, arrows दिया गया, inflation goes down. पहला term को ignore ही करो in that case. Just delete the first term. Mind में. Inflation goes down by 3%, so do 3% into 1.5. So that means return of market will move by 4.5%. 3% into 1.5 is 4.5%. But in which direction? Minus sign means in the opposite direction. So inflation is down, return of market would be up by 4.5%. Check whether our answer was same, 4.5. तो जो change अगर बोला तो पहला वाला constant term, intersect term को ignore करो. Just multiply that change 3% by this 1.5, so that becomes 4.5%. And because of opposite direction, inflation is down, so the return of market is going to move up by 4.5%. हम लोग को ये use करो shortcut. Okay, so after some time we will do like more practice like this. But अभी के लिए we are going to draw this line like this. So Neil, what is A and what is B? Sign. What is A and B in this?
Is positive.
Good. Slow line is going up, so that means B is positive, and A, because the line is starting above and hence A is also positive. Good. यहाँ पे जो line हमने plot किया, that is called as regression line. इसको और एक नाम है prediction line. It's called as regression line or prediction line. Okay. The actual values are going to plot around this line. Sometimes the actual values could be above, sometimes the actual values could be below. When actual values are above, they will look like this. So in the level 1, they had put it like this dot, circle करके ऐसे कुछ किया था. Okay, these are actual points which are above. Some actual points could be below also. Some points could be above, some points could be below, some points could be above, some points could be below. When they are above, it's called as positive error. and when they are below it's called as negative error. ऐसा जरूरी नहीं है कि 4 अबाव 4 बिलो, ऐसा हो सकता है कि 7 अबाव है और 1 ही बिलो है, या फिर 5 अबाव 3 बिलो, कुछ भी चलेगा. Some points will be above, some points will be below, but there are two things that we had discussed about in the level 1. I want you to recollect that. Some errors are positive, some errors are negative. उसके आगे दो चीज please लिखो. Write down this, show this diagram, and then just mention some errors could be positive, other errors could be negative, and then that two things that we had discussed in the level 1. If you're not able to recollect that, I'll help you. When the points are above, you have positive errors. When the points are below, when actual points are below, you have negative errors. Some errors are positive, some errors are negative. खुद लिखो उसके आगे. Two statements specifically that I will be looking for. Online guys, you can unmute and tell me these two statements. I am going to their desk and checking out what they are writing the two statements, which I can't do in your case. Good, Dev.
Also, sir, errors are homoscedastic in nature.
ठीक है, वो तो थोड़ा ज्यादा है, but ठीक है, मुझे तो और बेसिक चाहिए था. There's one more thing which I was looking for it. और एडवांस है. Good. One point, I think सबने लिखा एक point. Second point, दो लोगों से मिले मुझे, एक नील से मिला, वो एडवांस वाला पॉइंट था, एक देव से मिला, वो भी एडवांस वाला पॉइंट था. सेकंड पॉइंट जो मुझे चाहिए, which was get discussed. Okay. ये भी थोड़ा एडवांस वाला पॉइंट था. एरर्स आर रैंडम. Average being 0. Add up to 0. किसी ने सेकंड पॉइंट जो था, जो मुझे चाहिए था, that is not written. Some of you have written even more advanced point that I was looking for it. एक पॉइंट हमने लिखा कि some errors are positive, some errors are negative. Average value of the errors या sum of the errors is 0. Okay, so हमने डिस्कस किया था average, but अगर sum भी लिखा है तो no problem with that. So first point is some errors are positive, some errors are negative. If you take an average of them, you're going to get a 0. Average value of the error. Error is denoted like this or this. Huh? So we'll keep it simple. We'll write E. But in the textbook, they call it fancy like this. It's called as epsilon. We'll call it E. E for error. Is 0. ये और एक एडवांस पॉइंट बोला. तो जो अब तक पॉइंट मुझे मिला है, जस्ट से दोस पॉइंट्स व्हिच वेयर लिटिल एडवांस पॉइंट. ए विधि ने प्रॉपर लिखा है एरर्स आर रैंडम. दे शुड नॉट हैव एनी पैटर्न्स. एंड उसी से रिलेटेड पॉइंट नील ने लिखा प्रॉपर्ली दैट दे शुड नॉट हैव कोरिलेशन बिटवीन देम. सो पैटर्न का मतलब है कोरिलेशन. पॉजिटिव पॉजिटिव नेगेटिव, पॉजिटिव पॉजिटिव नेगेटिव, पॉजिटिव पॉजिटिव नेगेटिव. इट्स अ पैटर्न, इज नॉट अलाउड. Error should be completely random. They should not have any pattern. That means they should be uncorrelated with each other. ये point बहुत डिटेल वाला पॉइंट था, बट ठीक है, वो आई वाज नॉट एक्सपेक्टिंग. बट बाद में अगर एरर्स के बीच में कुछ पैटर्न निकला तो दैट्स कॉल्ड एज सीरियल कोरिलेशन. ये वर्ड लेवल 1 में नहीं था. हाँ, मैंने लेक्चर में बताया था, बट इट वाज नॉट देयर इन द लेवल 1 सिलेबस. इफ एरर्स which should have been random, but if they are not random, they are following some patterns. As I said, plus minus plus minus plus minus plus minus, they are following a pattern. In that case, errors are not random, they are serially correlated, which is a type of an error. Okay, ये दो लोगों ने बोला. और तुमने किसने कुछ पॉइंट लिखा था, और एक देव ने भी कुछ बोला था. हाँ, देव ने भी कुछ something about the variance he is mentioning. Okay, but अभी भी वो पॉइंट किसी ने मेंशन किया. See, understand करो, अगर errors are positive and negative, some errors are positive, some errors are negative, and they are averaging out to 0. तो हमें क्या करना चाहिए? गुड, हमें नेगेटिव एरर्स का स्क्वायर, मतलब सारे एरर्स का स्क्वायर करना चाहिए. सो वी शुड स्क्वायर द एरर्स एंड देन ऐड इट, एंड जिसका सम ऑफ स्क्वायर एरर्स कम है, that is a good model. Because see, my errors are like this: 2 minus 2, 3 minus 3. Her errors are 10 minus 10, 20 minus 10. Who is better?
Yours.
कैसे? 2 minus 2, 3 minus 3, इसका भी एवरेज 0 आ रहा है. 10 minus 10, 20 minus 20, इसका भी एवरेज 0 आ रहा है. I'll just put that on the screen. Analyst 1 and analyst 2. Analyst 1 के जो errors थे वो ऐसे थे: 2 minus 2, 3 and minus 3 guys silent. And analyst 2 के जो errors है वो है 10 minus 10 and minus 20 and 20. तो अगर मैं एवरेज कैलकुलेट करता हूं, लेट्स कैलकुलेट एवरेज. 2 minus 2 0, 3 minus 3 0, 0.4. 10 minus 10 0, minus 20 20 0, 0.4. How did you get to know that her model is bad and my model is good? Okay, so that's the reason you should do this square of a errors ka sum. So let's do the 2 ka square, that becomes 4, 9 and 9. 4 plus 4 16, 9 25, 9 34. And let's do the vidhi wala thing: 10 ka square 100 minus 10 ka square 100. This is 400 and this is 400, so it adds up to what? 200, 600, 1000. यहाँ पे clear है कि my sum of square of error is lower, hence my errors are lesser, and hence my model is better. The second thing is average value of error is 0 and sum of square of error. Error लिया, उसका square किया, उसका sum किया, should be least, should be lowest. And hence this regression is also called as least square regression, LSR. I repeat, some errors are positive, some errors are negative. Average value of the errors is 0. And number 2, because some errors are positive and negative, they are cancelling out with each other, and you don't want that, so you should square the errors, then sum it. So sum of square errors, and that should be lowest, because you don't prefer the error to be higher, you prefer the lower values of the error. So between these two models, the first model has lower SSE, but the sum of square of error is lower, and hence that is a better model than the second model. And इसी चीज को formalize करने के लिए we had made that ANOVA table, which I asked you at the start of the lecture. SSE सिर्फ SSE से compare करके नहीं है, right? Because it could be possible कि मेरा error 34 है, but मेरा accuracy sum of square of regression something like 10 है, और उसका sum of square of regression something like 4000 है. So to look at not just errors, you have to compare errors with accuracy. So don't compare just the errors in isolation, compare errors with accuracy, and that accuracy, मेरा errors 34 है, और what if my accuracy is let's say only 5? समझा? And उसका errors 1000 है, और what if उसका accuracy is 5000? Look at the ratio. So for that we convert this, that accuracy is called as sum of square of regression. Okay, so let's look at my case. My sum of square of error is 34, which took to be less than Vidhi's. With this 1000 के my 34 is lesser, but my accuracy is only 5. So what I'll do is I'll do the total of this, which is called as SST, and then I'll calculate the R square, which is 5 upon 39. So 5 divided by 39. So that is 12.82%. So that's like my percentage accuracy. And if I do it for the Vidhi, SSR upon, sorry, SSE हमने लिखा था 1000, and SSR उसका है, error उसका way higher than mine, 34 versus 1000, way higher, but उसका accuracy is 5000. The total becomes 6000, and 5000 upon 6000, her R square is 83%. So this is better than just comparing the SSE. So don't just compare SSE, compare SSE with accuracy, which is called as R square, coefficient of determination. So don't just compare SSE कि मेरा SSE lower है, उसका SSE ज़्यादा है, तो my model is better. But मेरा accuracy भी तो कम है. So to compare the SSR with SST.
So ये जो SSR है वो accuracy है या R square है?
R square is accuracy, but I'm just saying like correct decisions कितना है, like this like mistake and is like correct decisions. So to compare SSR with SST to get that R square.
ये SSR data से कैसे निकलता है?
एक है फॉर्मूला बेसिकली लाइक द रिग्रेस्ड वैल्यू माइनस एवरेज वैल्यू का स्क्वायर. जानो अभी अभी नहीं करते उसमें. The problem of R square is you always need two R squares and then you can find out whichever is higher that model is good. But on a standalone basis R square अगर मेरे मॉडल का R square है 82%, I cannot say that model is good or bad because we don't have any benchmark. यहाँ पे कैसा था, यहाँ पे सर के R square को विधि के R square का benchmark था, so you can say that this is lower. But just R square of 82, there's no benchmark, so we can't say whether model is good or bad. So we require to convert this R square into something called as F. How did we do that? We had this SSR जिसको हम divide किया था level 1 में 1 से. अब करेंगे something called as KC, which I'll talk about it what is K later on, to get something called as MSR, mean square of regression. ये जो SSE था उसको डिवाइड करेंगे लेवल 1 में किया था n-2 से, अब करेंगे n-k-1 से. ये रिप्लेस होगा K से और ये रिप्लेस होगा n-k-1 से. What is K? We'll talk about that later on. This will give you MSE. And then this is going to give you that F calculated value. And if that is greater than that F cutoff value, which we just saw, that we're going to be looking at degree of freedom for the numerator, like this, degree of freedom for the denominator, like this. क्या कुछ cutoff value जो आया था, compared to that, if calculated value is higher, then we say model is good. So R square is good enough when you have two R squares. The one with the higher R square is a better model than the other one. But R square is not good enough when you have a single R square. So that R square needs to be converted to F using this SSR upon K and SSE upon n-k-1 to get MSR and MSE. And the ratio of that is F calculated value. And if that is greater than cutoff value, the model is good to use. Can you switch off the DC one? Okay. Can you switch off the DC? DC one. Thank you. I'll revise a part of hypothesis testing that I require. So let's look at the hypothesis testing. I calculated correlation between the GDP and the stock market, and that came out to be 0.92. I want to test whether it is positive. I want to test whether R is positive. रोहन पॉजिटिव को मैथ्स में कैसे लिखते हैं? प्लस नहीं, मतलब हाँ, प्लस इज व्हाट इन लाइक ग्रेटर देन व्हाट?
Greater than 0.
You want to test whether R is greater than 0 or not. The moment you should see signs like this, it should remind you something, that this sign and this sign can only come in H1. Okay, so which means R greater than 0. Maybe because it's a greater than sign, we're going to say that R greater than 0 is H1. Also called as alternative hypothesis. And H0 would be opposite of that. That will be R greater than 0 ka ulta less than or equal to 0. This is step 1. Identify greater than sign या less than sign या not equal to sign. ये कहीं पे भी है, उसको आप लिखोगे H1. And इसका उल्टा greater than 0 का उल्टा less than equal to 0, that will be H0. Next one, you're going to draw a normal distribution like this. I'm going to identify the H1 ka sign. What is the H1 ka sign? Greater than. So where would the H1 be? Good. If H1 had a less than sign, H1 would have been there over here. And if h1 would have had a not equal to sign, h1 would have been there both. But here she's right, because h1 had a greater than sign, h1 would be there on the right and h0 over here. Then you require some kind of input which को बोलते हैं alpha या LOS, level of significance या alpha. It will be given to you. Let's say it's given as 5%. Okay, Piyush उसके आगे
5%
H1 में 5% लिखेंगे, H0 में लिखेंगे बाकी बचा हुआ 95%. Okay, Rohan, next step. हाँ, मतलब you require this cutoff value, this border. Okay, you require this cutoff value. For that, you will look at ZT for chi square. Arjun ने point proper किया था. For T, I'm sorry, for R, we'll be looking at T table. Okay, but in general, for average Z and T, and for sigma, we're going to be looking at F or chi square to get that cutoff value. हाँ, वो average के time अगर sample size बड़ा है तो we look at Z, छोटा तो we'll have to look at the T. But for correlation is right. For correlation we have to always look at T table.
सर ऐसा भी है ना कि अगर किसी नंबर कोई नंबर के साथ कर रहा है
तो standard deviation. Okay, but point is
सर एवरेज को अगर दूसरे एवरेज के साथ कर रहा है
तो difference of mean and mean of difference. But वो T test थी.
वो टी टेस्ट.
But in general अगर average को compare करना है तो Z और T, और अगर sigmas को compare करना है तो F और chi square. And because correlation को test करना है तो you have to remember that for correlation you require T. So when you go to the T table, you find something called as degree of freedom, DF, degree of freedom, which I had mentioned in the level 1. Generally degree of freedom would be n minus 1, but for correlation and regression it will be n minus 2. Let's assume a sample size. Let's say sample size is 10. So degree of freedom would be 10 minus 2, degree of freedom would be 8. We know that degree of freedom is going to be 8 now, so I'm going to be looking in this row. Okay, but apart from that, we require to know कि यहाँ पे tails कितना है. Do you have one tail or two tail? So you have single tail over here. And in that one tail, how much data is there? 5%. So we have one tail. And at one tail, we have 5% data. So based on that, the cutoff value is coming to this 1.87. Okay, one more time, degree of freedom is this 8. And second, we have one tail only. And that's 5% in the one tail. So one tail and one tail has that 5%. So with that, it becomes 1.86 cutoff value. So cutoff value 1.86.
So DF data कैसे पहुंचेगा?
N minus 2. Degree of freedom is n minus 2. Sample size is assumed to be 10. But it will be given to in the exam. Table they will get in next. In the level 2, they will not be kind. In the level 1, I hope they were kind to give you the cutoff value directly. Level 2, you will be given table and you have to look at the table to get those cutoff value. In the level 1, if I am the examiner, I'll give you the cutoff value directly. I'll not ask you to go through the table. Next one is calculated value, and that's where you have to remember a lot of formulas. And इसका एक formula था. कौन बोले? हाँ.
R into root of n minus 2 upon 1 minus r.
Good. So let's put those values and get the calculated value. R into square root of n minus 2 into square root of 1 minus r square. R 0.92. Square root of n minus 2, that's 8, 10 minus 2. And it's just square root of 1 minus 0.92 square. So let's start with the denominator, 0.92 square. Put a negative sign after this. Do plus 1. And do square root. Take it up. Into 8 ka square root. and into 0.92. One more time, 0.92 square plus minus sign, do plus 1, take a square root of that, take an inverse of that, multiplied by 8 ka square root and into 0.92. How much you are getting? 6.63 आ रहा है, वापस करो. How much you got?
6.639.
6.64. Calculated value 6.64. कहाँ पे आ रहा है? अतर कहाँ पे आ रहा है 6.64? हाँ, ये वाले एरिया में 6.64 is coming somewhere over here. So H1 would be selected. So your H1 would be selected. So your belief R greater than 0 is going to be. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it is being selected. Don't say H1 is right. Say H1 is selected. I repeat, do not say, this is a common mistake that students say, H1 is right. No, we are selecting H1. I'm not saying H1 is right. I'm saying we are just selecting H1. L2 में ये फॉर्मूला जो अभी अर्जुन ने बोला उसको याद था, ये नहीं चाहिए, पर इससे बहुत ज्यादा घटिया फॉर्मूले चाहिए.
ये वाला ये आएगा क्या?
I repeat. I did this example not for the formula. I did this example to recollect what was the hypothesis testing that we did in the level 1 of the process of that. In the level 2, you're going to be following the same process, but last में जो formula आने वाला है, that formula is going to be different. Different and difficult.
Sir, 6.64 is more than
6.64 calculated value. ये 1.88 के right में आ रहा है, which is H1 का area, and hence H1 is getting selected. और H1 is right. H1 is getting selected.
So level 1 ऐसा लगता है fail to reject H1 या
H0 के टाइम बोलते थे वो. We are selecting H0 select की जगह H0 fail to reject. यहाँ पे तो H0 reject हो रहा है.
reject a line.
हाँ, यहाँ पे H0 reject हो रहा है, but अगर H0 select होता था तो you say H0 select की जगह H0 fail to reject.
ये H1 को select किया and then we get to know कि H0 का तो वो type
आधा इसके ऊपर आता है. Silent please. ये कॉल में 2 बार आया. हेलो, हाँ थोड़ा सा बिजी है, अर्जेंट है. पण रात्री तुम्ही येऊ शकता का भेटायला अराउंड 8 8:30 वाजता 8:30 वाजता. अदरवाइज तुम्हाला काही डिस्कस करायचं का? हाँ हाँ, जर तुम्हाला काही क्वेश्चन असेल, इफ यू वांट टू मीट देन आई विल बी फ्री एट अराउंड 8:30 8:45 मी फ्री असेल. अदरवाइज no problem. So you can pay the fees and I'll like start this admission. मी थोडा ब्रेक मध्ये पाठवतो तुम्हाला. मी आज पूर्ण दिवस बिझी ऍक्च्युअली, रात्री 9 वाजता फ्री आहे. हाँ चालेल. Sorry guys. Okay, so वो question one more time. I hope you guys will be able to get that. Returns of market is equal to 9 minus, silent please, 9 minus 1.6 times inflation. 2 questions. If inflation is 5%, what's the return of market? And second question, if inflation goes down by 5%, what happens to the return of market? पिया मैंने ये नहीं पूछा what is return of market in the conversation, what happens to return of market. And second thing, both return of market and inflation are in percentage. Return of market and inflation are in percentages. Be careful, patch you have 0.05. And secondly क्या करना है, exchange वाला केस है, जो शॉर्टकट यूज करना है सेकंड वाले केस में, वो पहला वाला जीरो वीरो वो सब अजून नहीं करते, सिंपली केस में शॉर्टकट यूज करके गेट द आंसर।
सर ये आने वाले हैं।
नहीं ये बेसिक्स है, ये लेवल 1 का रिवीजन चल रहा है।
1 and 8
These questions are not level 2 questions, huh? अब तक का एक भी क्वेश्चन लेवल 2 में नहीं आने वाला है। This I am doing because I know how sincerely you did level 1 regression. Yeah, shall I put 5? Yeah, 0.05. Because they have mentioned that interest rate is in percentage, I need to just put the number 5 and not 0.05. Nearly clear, है ना? So 1.6 into 5 is 8. 9 minus 8. Shall I write 1? Final answer, what our return of market should be what? 1%. Although it is coming as 1, but because it is in percentage, right? 1%. And second one case, I saw a arrow. And whenever I see the arrow, I delete the first term. Okay, so whenever they say arrow, ignore the first term. And they mention inflation goes down by this 5%. So 5% into 6, that will be 8%. 5 into 6, 5 into 1.6 will be 8%. So return of market is going to move by 8%. And because I'm seeing this minus sign, we know that the relationship is inverse. So if inflation is going down, the return of market would be going up. Okay, so number one is the multiplication 5 into 1.6, that becomes 8. 5 into 1.6, that becomes 8%. And number two, because there's a negative sign, it means that the arrows are going to move in the opposite direction. Inflation goes down, so return of market is going to go up. क्या हुआ? क्या हुआ? नहीं, इसको रोहन और इसको पूछो क्या हुआ? बताओ तो क्या किया? What he was asking or what you were asking? So पहले 5 into 1.6, that's 8%. 5% into 1.6, that's 8%. And number two, because the sign is negative, it means that arrows will be in the opposite direction. So if inflation is going down, the return on market will be going down. ओके, एक रिग्रेशन का क्वेश्चन, सॉरी हाइपोथेसिस का क्वेश्चन करते हैं. ओके, आई कैलकुलेटेड एवरेज रिटर्न्स of a mutual fund, and that was from a sample of 30 months. 30 months का sample लिया था, and that came out to be 15%. They claim that a return is greater than 10%. So their claim is return is greater than 10%. We want to test that claim. So you have to test the claim of the mutual fund. You have to test the claim of mutual fund that the returns are greater than 10%. Alpha 5%. ओके, कैलकुलेटेड वैल्यू में तुम लोग को दे रहा हूं क्योंकि मुझे डाउट है या मैं श्योर हूं कि तुम्हें कैलकुलेट वैल्यू का फॉर्मूला याद नहीं होगा. ओके, कैलकुलेट वैल्यू इज इक्वल टू 2.06. अगर आई जस्ट वॉक टू योर प्लेसेस टू सी हाउ यू आर डूइंग इट, एंड अगर तुमने उसके बाद कैलकुलेट वैल्यू अज्यूम करो 2.06, उसके बाद कैलकुलेट वैल्यू सच वाला कैलकुलेट करना है तुम लोग को, अगर तुम लोग को याद है वो फॉर्मूला तो. बट एज ऑफ नाउ अज्यूम कैलकुलेट वैल्यू 2.06. Online guys, I can't help you unless you like, I don't know, stats में स्क्रीनशॉट जा सकता है, I don't know, या फिर मोबाइल पे फोटो भेजो मुझे. And if I'm putting the photo in my mobile WhatsApp chat, just raise hand so that I'll know कि किसका WhatsApp chat देखना है. So Neil got H1 and H0 right. I just saw Neil's notebook. H1 and H0 was right. इसके बाद आर्यन ना Bhavin, sorry. Bhavin got the diagram right with H1 and H0 with numbers, with percentage.
सर टेबल है
और यहाँ कैलकुलेटर के लिए टेबल लगेगा. Sorry, you require a table for the calculated value. Okay, I'm happy almost all of you are till the cutoff value, and cutoff value will be there somewhere in this table. डिग्री ऑफ फ्रीडम इंपॉर्टेंट है. कट ऑफ वैल्यू रॉन्ग आना नहीं चाहिए. फाइनल आंसर तुम्हारा शायद राइट आएगा, बट कट ऑफ वैल्यू रॉन्ग नहीं आना चाहिए.
नहीं है 1.699
वही है ना.
Once you get a cutoff value from this table, come back, look at the calculated value, and based on that judge H1 H0. All right, so I'm happy सबने H1 proper लिखा, written greater than 10%. So you can put this as H1. Silent guys, no discussion now. And H0 written less than or equal to 10%. I saw like almost everyone's notebook had this properly. Then this diagram was required, and greater than is there in the H1, so you have to focus on the right tail. And alpha 5%, so 5% over here and 95% over here. And then we require this cutoff value, and for that we require T table, and we require degree of freedom for that, and we require one tail and 5% in the upper tail, 5% in that tail, and degree of freedom was n-1, not n-2. For correlation and regression it is n-2, otherwise it is n-1, which is 30 minus 1, which is 29. We go in that table, degree of freedom is 29. We have one tail and 5% in that tail. So with that, cutoff value was 1.70, 699, 1.70. So cutoff value 1.70 or 699, whatever. And compared to that, the calculated value which was given to us is 2.06. That calculated value 2.06 is coming somewhere over here, which is H1 ka area. So H1 will be right.
yes right
Selected, and H0 would be rejected. Okay, H1 will be selected, H0 will be rejected. Okay, I just saw calculated value formula in one notebook. Arjun ka tha. Formula for the calculated value again is not in the level 2, but uska similar version hai. Formula was like this: x bar or average value minus value in the H1 divided by sigma upon square root of n. I didn't give you sigma, so you couldn't calculate this. But average value दिया था मैंने, which is 15%, minus value in the H1, this 10%, divided by sigma, which was not given, and divided by square root of 30. So you couldn't calculate the calculated values because sigma was not given to you.
sample size was 30%.
See, point is, Z तब यूज होगा जब population का sigma is given.
या फिर
sample का sigma अगर given है तो you require T table. And by the way, level 2 में you will not touch Z table. We'll only look at T table. Hey, Z table पीछे दिया ही नहीं है. So in the level 2, Z is not going to be used. Only T,
मतलब
F
इन जनरल
and chi
एवरेज
square.
पूछा तो टी ही होगा.
हाँ, अभी level 2 में Z है ही नहीं. Level 2 में T है. So I'm going to write 4 things on the screen. 2 of them are going to be right. 2 of them are going to be mistake. One would be stupid mistake. One would be severe mistake.
Type 1, type 2.
Okay. H0 was selected. H0 was selected, and later on we got to know H1 was correct. H0 was rejected, and later on we got to know H1 was correct. जान में ट्विस्ट करो, डायरेक्टली ऐसा लेवल में नहीं था, थोड़ा सा इजियर था लेवल 1 में. Okay, H0 was selected, and we got to know H1 was incorrect. H0 was rejected, and we got to know H1 was incorrect. 2 of them are correct decisions, 2 of them are mistake, and out of those 2 mistakes, one is time pass mistake and second one is serious mistake. ये level 2 में है. Is there in level 2?
So this is based upon अपने जो भी
नहीं, ये जो इसका पहले वाले क्वेश्चन का कोई कनेक्शन नहीं है. It's not connected with the previous question answer. There was this right. There was this diagram on this.
bad manager, good manager.
नहीं, that bad manager, good manager तो मैंने किया था lecture में. He wasn't there in the level 1, so he won't know that. He's talking about a diagram that was like picture ki a guy who has a fat belly and a pregnant lady beside that, and a doctor says to the fat guy that you are pregnant, and doctor says to the pregnant lady that you are not pregnant.
First वाला type, last वाला type.
तो जो पहला वाला मिस्टेक है ना कि a fat guy with a belly being told that he is pregnant is not that mistake, because उसको पता है मैं pregnant नहीं हूँ. Obviously a guy cannot be pregnant, so उसको अगर तुम बोल रहे हो fat guy with a belly, उसको बोल रहे हो तुम pregnant हो, तो it's a stupid mistake. It's a type 1 mistake. But pregnant lady को तुम बोल रहे हो कि you're not pregnant, that's a big mistake. She will get shocked. Type 2 error. जो लेक्चर में हमने डिस्कस किया था, if you hire a bad manager, it's a mistake, and if you do not hire a good manager, that's also a mistake. A good manager getting rejected is a mistake, and a bad manager getting selected is also a mistake. And then specifically, अगर तुम good manager को reject करते हो, तो तुम्हें अच्छा रिटर्न नहीं मिलेगा, but at least portfolio तो safe रहेगा. And hence, it's not a deadly mistake, it's a type 1 mistake. But अगर तुम bad manager को hire करते हो, he will generate losses in your portfolio, and because of that, it's a serious mistake, it's a type 2 mistake. इसके पहले मैंने एग्जांपल दिया था लेक्चर में कि हाँ, so I'm going to Wayanad tomorrow at 8:30. I'll reach to airport. So if I don't reach on time, I'll miss the flight, but there will be other flights. Wayanad is in Kerala. Okay, so if I miss that flight, there are other flights to catch. So एक flight जो मैं जा रहा हूँ 8:30 की है, उसके बाद 12:30 की flight है, but उसका टिकट लेना पड़ेगा, तो 10-12 हजार का कुछ खर्चा होगा. So type 1 mistake, not a serious mistake.
लास्ट टाइम हुआ था, आपने बोला था उसको प्रोडक्ट के लिए एडिट.
अच्छा हाँ, तो उसी दिन चल रहा था ना ये.
नहीं, आप ये एग्जांपल अपना बहुत पहले चल रहा था.
नहीं,
टाइम चल रहा था और फिर ही तभी
it happened I think on the I don't know. So let me say, I shouldn't say. If I am catching that 11 June ka flight and I don't miss that flight, 11 June, yeah, 11 June, 11 June, I guess. Air India London flight from Ahmedabad. Type 2 mistake. Except that one guy. Okay, so.
Sir, वो तो.
So that is basically life threatening. That is basically called as you catch a flight which gets crashed. You can catch a flight which gets hijacked. You lose the life. That's a type 2 mistake. And then I mentioned this example that if you hire a bad manager, you will lose the money. Type 2 mistake. And if you do not hire a good manager, you don't get good returns, but at least your portfolio is safe. Type 1 mistake. And then to identify this, मैंने कुछ बोला था, and the clue was assume H0 is your manager. So that's the clue. You're going to assume that H0 is a manager. Okay, so quickly I'll just walk around and see what you have mentioned. Let's see if someone gets 4 on 4. He's like cross के बाद अच्छा इसका like type 1 error, correct decision and type 2 error. Correct decision, type 1, type 2 and correct decision. दो अलग-अलग आंसर मिले हैं.
हाँ सर. Type 2 error, correct decision,
Type 1 correct decision, type 2 correct decision, type 1.
हाँ same. ये वाला.
I got 3 answers now. Let's see the first. Silent please. Now focus. 3 अलग-अलग आंसर मिले. Okay, so assume H0 is a manager, guys. Silent please. Assume H0 is a manager. मेरे पास एक क्वेश्चन के लिए 3 मिनट है, सफिशिएंट टाइम है, मैं टाइम पास करने के लिए टाइम है मेरे पास. आई नॉट इमेजिन इन द ब्रेन मैनेजर को रिप्लेस H0 को रिप्लेस किया मैनेजर इज सिलेक्टेड एंड H1 इज करेक्ट मतलब H0 इज रॉन्ग. H1 इज करेक्ट मतलब जानवर ट्विस्ट किया था मतलब H0 इज इनकरेक्ट. H0 इज manager is incorrect matlab manager is bad. Correct these two statement. Manager was selected and manager was bad. Bad manager and manager selected, connect them. Bad manager selected, it will be a drastic loss in your portfolio. It's not just a mistake, it's a serious mistake. It was a type 2 error. फोकस इनका मिस्टेक हुआ. फोकस. सेकेंड वन H0 मतलब मैनेजर रिजेक्टेड. H1 करेक्ट मतलब H0 इनकरेक्ट मतलब बैड. जस्ट राइट, आई लेट इट कंप्लीट. H0 करेक्ट मतलब H1 करेक्ट मतलब H0 इनकरेक्ट मतलब बैड. H0 मतलब मैनेजर. सो बैड मैनेजर, लुक एट दिस, bad manager and manager rejected. But connect these 2 points. Bad manager and manager rejected मतलब bad manager rejected. Bad manager को reject करना चाहिए, किया उसको. Correct decision. No mistake in this. Third one, H0 मतलब manager, again I write manager selected, and H1 is incorrect मतलब H0 is correct मतलब manager, H0 मतलब manager and correct मतलब he is good. So connect these 2 points now. Manager is good and manager is selected. A good manager is selected, correct decision. Good manager should be selected. Okay, last one, H0 rejected मतलब manager को reject कर दिया. We rejected the manager. And H1 is incorrect मतलब H0 is correct मतलब manager is correct. Correct मतलब good. So now connect these 2 statements. The manager was good and that good manager has been rejected. So good manager reject किया, mistake है. It's a mistake, but it's not like a drastic mistake because there are other good managers that you can still select. So it's a type 1 error. Correct sequence was type 2, correct, and type 1. I want to say how many of you got this right? Already also raise hand. I want to say how many of you got this right? Many of you got it. Just want to see raise hand over here. Next and the final thing, then we'll take a break and we'll start level 2 syllabus. Probability of type 1 error was something, and probability of type 2 error was something. I want you to write that. Recollect that, write that. Please don't shout, don't discuss right now. Probability type 1 error was having some formula, and probability type 2 also has some formula. Guys, silent please. Type 1 error, type 2 error. So probability type 1 error 3-4 नोटबुक में रहेगा, तुमने कॉपी किया है, I think alpha LOS. Probability type 1 is alpha, also called as level of significance, and probability of type 2 error was really difficult. It's 1 minus power of test. Okay, so power of test, there is no formula, it will be given to you. So power of test will be given to you, and you do 1 minus power of test. So for example, if power of test is 90%, 1 minus 0.9, that becomes 0.1. 10% is probability of type 2 error.
What was 1 minus level of confidence?
Guys, silent please. 1 minus alpha, there was nothing. There's no formula.
1 minus level of confidence.
That's right. Okay. So basically, if alpha is 5%, she's like, then what is 95%? That was called as confidence level. Okay, so if alpha is 5, confidence level is 95%. Like दोनों add होके 100% होता है. Just to tell you the formula, there's no more there in the level 2 syllabus. You have more dangerous formula in the level 2 syllabus. दो formula हमने लिखा, average का जो t था, p value for the average x bar minus h1 divided by sigma upon square root of n. Then for r, so you got 2 of 2 as of now. Next one, chi-square n minus 1 into s square upon value in the h1 ka square. F is more easier, s higher upon s lower the whole square. Standard deviation higher upon standard deviation lower the whole square. Apart from that, you had difference of mean and mean of differences. Uske formulas were not required to be remembered. Difference of means and mean of differences. Is what Kaushal was saying about it. Uske formulas are not required. Apart from that, you had this dangerous looking formula 1 minus 6 into sigma, ye wala formula, which is again not required. It is called as that interdependency wala test where you were Spearman rank. You had this matrix used to be given. यहाँ पे जो नंबर है उसको कंपेयर करना है विद एवरेज. एवरेज कैसे निकालना है? इसका टोटल इनटू इसका टोटल डिवाइडेड बाय ग्रैंड टोटल. You take a difference. Blah 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 blah. It's not required. Find 242. Please be back before 3.